Johannesburg in South Africa. Our Save the Children has warned that children displaced some of the worst flooding across southern Africa in decades and are facing a growing health crisis with a lack of running water and destroyed sanitation facilities fueling a spike in waterborne diseases. Heavy downpours across several countries in southern Africa have affected more than 1.3 million people, with houses and critical infrastructure destroyed, disrupting access to health and education services. The rainy season is expected to continue for at least another month. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by a Director of Programs at Save the Children, Briede. Megan, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thanks very much for inviting us.
Now, Megan, is this the worst flooding that Southern Africa has seen in decades?
I think it definitely is. And I think what makes it worse is that it doesn't seem to be abating. So it's not stopping. We've seen before massive flooding, and then you have a time off, a reprieve. But it seems like it just keeps on coming. Since about November, we just see constant flooding across the different regions.
Now, take us through the impact of these floods on children. We don't have a lot of time, but just highlighting what each country is going through in terms of also figures.
Great. So I think the biggest hit country is Mozambique for sure. They've had at least 844,000 people displaced. And of course, that leads to disruptions in education, children living in temporary shelters, increases our risks of child safeguarding. And then, like you said, increases the risk of waterborne diseases like cholera. Also, particularly in Zimbabwe, they've seen a massive spike because of the flooding in malaria as well. In South Africa, about 19,500 people displaced, or property or people's homes damaged, large infrastructure damage, roads, over 300 roads just destroyed, health facilities, education facilities. So the impact on children is vast. Zambia, you're looking at about 4,000 households affected, and their biggest challenge has been massive damage to agriculture, so to crops. So now you have increasing threats of hunger, malnutrition for children in those areas. So each country, due to their uniqueness, have different impacts, but overall, of course, children are the most affected.
And how are you supporting the children affected by these floods?
So across the countries mentioned, Save the Children South Africa has relief response, either through the programs will vary depending on the country, looking at assisting families to access safe water, so bringing in water tanks, water filtration systems, distribution of food, blankets, support within your temporary shelters, particularly around issues of child safeguarding. These are times when children are at their most vulnerable, and we need to make sure that they are not exploited, especially children who have been separated from their families. So we do a lot of work there, and also looking at your early childhood development centers, helping restock them and helping rebuild where necessary.
And what strategies are needed to address this as Southern Africa? We will continue to experience erratic weather patterns, as you've already highlighted, due to the effects of climate change. But do we really have a plan?
Well, we really need a plan. Each country needs their anticipatory action plans. And as the NGO sector, what we tend to do is we work with local based organizations to try and develop anticipatory action plans, make sure that the community is well prepared, they understand the threats, and they are able to respond timely as soon as challenges happen. At a higher level, we need to be talking about climate change. And we need to be working as governments together to look at what do we do to contribute or address this crisis that we have. You know, the oceans are warming, which means there's more moisture, which means there's going to be more rain. It's not going to stop. But at the same time, there's deforestation, so there's no way to capture the water. There's more urbanization. So it really takes us in the Southern African region pulling together to come up with strategies as countries for climate change.
And just on the ground, with your team interacting with these young children, their families, and just seeing these children and what they're going through, how do you then deal with that? How do you have conversations to make them feel better and to not feel overwhelmed and just shocked at everything they're experiencing?
So I think the most important thing is to have people who are trained and able to deal with trauma. Losing your home through a flood of this nature is very traumatic, and knowing that people around you have lost their lives. So we need to have trained counselors who can be present to do trauma debriefing for those families, and also just our community change agents, which are more volunteers who are actively there just to hear and listen to a child or even an adult when they do need to talk through what has happened.
Well, Megan, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to leave it there for today.
Thank you very much.
That's Megan Briede, Director